We're at the top of BibleStudyManuals.net, K95.htm. And we've been looking for 15 minutes now on prehistoric man discoveries, supported designed and orchestrated creation, not evolution. So far the evidence, the great preponderance of evidence, supports in great weight a designed and orchestrated creation. We've looked through a number of places. A great book to get is Marvin Lubinau's Bones of Contention. We're looking down at Zolli, Lord Zolli Aukerman makes his point in a book he wrote called Beyond the Ivory Tower. Well, he says, we want that which is scientific. Yet the unscientific, like misleading restorations, is exactly the kind of evidence that has left a major impression with a generation of school children. We will look, for example, at Time Life's book, Early Man. We see in the lineup of the supposed lineage of living creatures that led to man, beginning with the modern gibbon, which they say in the article in fine print had absolutely nothing to do with man. Yet they left it in there in the major print in the page. They progress on upward in size, finally leading to modern man, who is tallest of all. But when we look at the fossil record, we'll see that this is a misrepresentation of the evidence. Regarding this, Roger Lewin, who is editor and research and news in Science magazine, in his recent book, Bones of Contention, by Lubinau, points out, the key issue is the ability correctly to infer a genetic relationship between two species on the basis of similarity in appearance, at gross and detailed levels of anatomy. Sometimes this approach can be deceptive, partly because similarity of structure does not necessarily imply an identical genetic heritage. A shark, which is a fish, and a porpoise, which is a mammal, look similar, but inside they're vastly different. So things that look similar are not necessarily kin. But the whole basis of the evolutionist portrayal of the lineage of man is similarity. And we know that's not a scientific basis. And if you put that unscientific basis of similarity together with the unscientific basis of reconstruction, you have a tower of unscientific evidence. We look at an outline of the lineage proposed by Lawrence C. Boyce in his Atlas of Fossil Man. This is a book that's taught in most of the universities today, and it's a simplistic view of the lineage of man, beginning down at the bottom of the chart with Ramapithecus to Australopithecine, and then to Pithecanthropine, Penthanthropine, okay, or Homo erectus. Oh, okay, I can say that better. To Neanderthals, and finally to moderns. Because they leave Cro-Magnon out, find out that was just a branch that died out. Wow. Let's be reminded of the point made by Richard Lewontin, one of the leading evolutionists in our country, professor of zoology at Harvard. Look, I'm a person who says in this book, which is Human Diversity, that we don't know anything about the ancestors of the human species. All the fossils which have been dug up and are claimed to be ancestors, we haven't the faintest idea whether they are ancestors. All you've got is Homo sapiens there, and you've got that fossil there, over here. You've got another fossil here, and it's up to you to draw the lines, because there are no lines. There's no evidence that there should be any lines drawn. Yet they draw them anyway and write books. Well, that's one way of making some money. Harpers. Now, many people forget that they see the lines drawn and they assume that's the way it is in the fossil record. But that's simply not the case. They draw them up on the basis of similarity, and the similarities come from the reconstructions. And so that's not a scientific basis. So we have real discoveries. They support a design creation when properly investigated. That's the point that's being made over and over again so far. Homo sapien discoveries, Cro-Magnon, and modern man. Fossils that are indistinguishable from modern humans. Lubinau's book, Bones of Contention, extend all the way back to 4.5 million years ago on the so-called evolutionary timescale. Not necessarily the case. At the bottom of the lowest bed of Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, a circular stone structure was found that can only have been made by true humans. This object, 14 feet in diameter, is to be the world's oldest man-made structure. Technically, it is an artifact rather than a fossil. Mary Leakey discovered it on the oldest of the occupation sites or living floors at Olduvai during the 1961-62 digging season. Mary realized quickly that there was a pattern in the distribution of these stones, an intentional piling of stones on top of each other. These stones are themselves lava rock that are not indigenous to what was a lakeshore when the structure was built. Several hundred rocks were brought from a source some miles away. Other stones on the occupation site are scarce and haphazardly scattered. I'm going to blow my nose here. Okay, don't have a fever today, so I feel all right. I've escaped the virus one more day. Anyway, the people on the Okambambi tribe in southwest Africa construct such shelters today. They make a low ring of stones with higher piles at intervals to support upright poles or braces. Over these poles are placed skins and grasses to keep out the water. Keep out the wine. The rain, maybe. Turkana tribesmen living in the desert of northern Kenya make similar shelters, obviously the rain. What staggers the mind is that the living floor where the structure was found was dated by evolutionists at 1.8 million years ago. Revisions published in late 1991 indicate that it may be as old as 2 million years ago. Just add another 200,000 years, really. R.C. Walter, P.C. Menega, R.L. Hay, R.E. Drake, and G.H. Curtis wrote Laser Fusion, using the potassium-argon dating or argon-argon dating of the bedrock. They wrote this. So they have two different systems of dating, and they're 200,000 years apart. Wow. Dr. Don Patton, the Leakey expedition found a stone dwelling, a circle of stone, just exactly like the stones that formed the foundation of the dwellings that modern natives in the same area live in today. This discovery of a circle of stones is underneath all of these fossils that are supposed to have led to man. Yet man preceded them? No, maybe the fossils made them up. Maybe the amoebas got together and started moving some stone. Now then, if we've got what they have today underneath all of that, then I think we can see some serious reasons to question the idea of the evolutionary sequence that led to man. Lubinau says, Mary Leakey also found the usual stone and bone waste as well as older one tools. These tools are normally considered by evolutionists to be very primitive. However, Mary reports that a similar type of stone chopper is used today by the remote Turkana tribesmen to break open the nuts of the dune palm. Just draw conclusions without any support. Mary says, the conceptual ability required to make such structures, the physical ability to carry hundreds of large stones several miles, and the fact that similar structures are made by humans today constitute strong evidence that true humans were on the scene 2 million years ago at Olduvai on the evolution timescale. So beginning in 1978, associates of Mary Leakey discovered a series of what appeared to be human footprints trails at the site Leatoli, 30 miles south of Olduvai Gorge in northern Tanzania. The strata above the footprints has been dated at 3.6 million years, while the strata below them has been dated at 3.8 million years. There you go, another 200,000 years. These footprints trails rank as one of the great fossil discoveries of the 20th century. Mary Leakey told a story in April 1979 issue of National Geographic. She describes the footprints as remarkably similar to those of modern man. Maybe they were modern men. Footprints in the Ashes of Time, National Geographic. These parallel trails are seen and made by 3 individuals, with one individual walking in the footprints of another. The trails contain a total of 69 prints, extending a length of about 30 yards. More prints may yet be uncovered. The prints were made in fresh volcanic ash spewed out by Mount Sediment to the east. A unique combination of circumstances caused these amazing prints to be preserved. The specialist who has conducted the most extensive recent study of these footprints is Russell H. Tuttle, the University of Chicago. He did so at the invitation of Mary Leakey. The footprint trails at Laetoli appear to have been made by the individuals who were barefoot, probably habitually unshod. When Tuttle began his study, he discovered that very few studies have been done on habitually unshod peoples. Studies done on the footprints of shod people would not be necessarily applicable to the Laetoli prints. Maybe they were. Maybe they had shoes. Neanderthal man seemed to be wearing shoes. As a part of Tuttle's investigations, that's in France, he observed these Indians, Machaguenda Indians or whatever, in the rugged mountains of Peru, a habitually barefoot people, modern Indians, today's, More than 70 individuals from age 7 to 67, both male and female, constituted his study. He concludes in sum, the 3.5 million year old footprint trails at Laetoli Site G resembles those of habitually unshod modern humans. None of these features suggest that the hominids, these Laetoli that are concluded to be less than human, were less capable bipeds than we are. They find evidence to disprove themselves, and they say, well, just keep it in the textbooks. If the Laetoli footprints are so much like those of modern humans, why would Tuttle talk about the existence of one other hominid in East Africa, one whose identity is totally unknown? Why not ascribe those footprints to humans? Tuttle is honest enough to give us the reason. If the G footprints were not known to be so old, we would readily conclude that they were made by a member of our own genus, Homo sapiens. Wow. But we've concluded differently, so we're not going to address it any further. The only problem is that to ascribe those fossil footprints to Homo sapiens does not fit the evolutionary scenario time-wise. According to the theory of evolution, those footprints are too old to have been made by true humans. Their age-dating methods are really askew, and even missed by 200,000 years anyway. It is a classic case of interpreting facts according to preconceived philosophical bias. Interpreting the Laetoli footprints is not a question of scholarship. It is a question of logic and the basic rules of evidence. We know that what the human footprint looks like. There is no evidence that any other creature, past or present, had a foot exactly like the human foot. We also know what human footprints look like. We have very positive identification, the human foot and the Laetoli footprints. On the other hand, is the total absence of the kind of information needed to make any identification of these footprints, or these prints, with Australopithecines. Juries deal with that kind of problem continually. The human mind deals with what kind of logic every day. Were it not for the darkness evolution casts upon the human mind, there would be no question at all as to which category of those Laetoli footprints should be assigned to humans. They're identical to humans. Until something better comes along, I think you better suggest that. We have no other being that has anything close to that, except some grizzly bear, but not even close. But closer than apes and chimpanzees, their feet don't look like humans. Bear claws look better than that, closer to that. More on this next time.